Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. Rutgers had lost 21 straight Big Ten games going into 2020. Greg Schiano came in and won not one, not two, but 3 Big Ten games in his first year back in Piscataway. And now he has the Scarlet Knights looking for more. So again, guys, welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, here to predict Rutgers' schedule and record for this 2021 college football season. As always, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and also make sure to check out everything down in the description below, including signing up for our expert picks. Some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country for one of the lowest prices in the entire country. The numbers speak for themselves, so make sure to go give that a look. So let's take a look at Rutgers today, guys. Look, they were one of the biggest surprises in the country last year, and you might think that sounds ridiculous coming from a team that went 3-6. But again, a team that had lost 21 straight Big Ten games brings in a brand new head coach in Greg Schiano, who loves Rutgers maybe more than anybody in the world. But he comes in and there's no expectations for this football program. And in week 1, he gets an 11-point victory at Michigan State, and then wins 2 more Big Ten games over the span of the year, and then had 3 one-possession losses. So it very well could have been a 6-win year for Rutgers. The culture changed significantly in just 1 year under Greg Schiano. The effort, the competitiveness, the talent all changed. And the way he's recruiting, it doesn't look like that's going to change anytime soon. Rutgers is trending in the right direction, and they look to be poised to continue to do so in 2021. We take a look at their roster, guys. Let's start on offense. Everyone's back. And that has to be so exciting and so encouraging if you're a Scarlet Knights fan. Everyone is back on offense. It starts with their quarterback in Noah Vedral. Threw for over 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions last year. And while those numbers don't sound amazing, he brought stability to the quarterback position, something Rutgers really never had under Chris Ash. So Vedral is back for another year, a guy who all the coaches rave about, saying he conducts our offense so well and so efficiently. Isiah Pacheco is back at running back, 515 yards and 3 touchdowns on the year. Bo Melton is back. He's the big-time playmaker, 638 yards and 6 touchdowns last year at wide receiver. And the Scarlet Knights return their entire offensive line. This offense, guys, averaged 13.4 points per game more in 2020 than they did in 2019. That was good enough for the 4th best and 4th biggest change in the entire country. When you look at the defense, 8 starters are back. And Greg Schiano, he's a defensive-minded coach, and he proved that in 2020. 19 turnovers the Scarlet Knights forced. They forced 19 turnovers. They had 7.9 tackles for a loss per game. That was good for 11th in the entire country. And then, of course, they had 21 sacks, which was the most that Rutgers has ever had since they joined the Big Ten all the way back in 2014. Tyshon Fogg returns as the veteran leader for the Scarlet Knights defense. Again, 8 starters back from a unit that wasn't amazing. They weren't, knock you dead. They weren't one of the best in the country, but they showed significant improvement, and they're going to do that again in 2021. So we're going to take a look at their schedule. We're going to take a look at Rutgers' schedule here and see if Greg Schiano can maybe do the unthinkable and get Rutgers to a bowl game in just his 2nd year back. When you look at the schedule, guys, early on, it's very favorable. They open up against Temple on a Thursday night, September 2nd. Temple went 1-6 last year. They lose their star quarterback, Anthony Russo, who transferred to Michigan State. I think this is going to be a cakewalk for Rutgers. They host the Owls in Piscataway. Expectations are very high for Rutgers. They can finally pack that stadium, and expectations and excitement is going to be so high that they're going to finally pack fans into that stadium. They beat Temple by double digits. They then go to the Carrier Dome to take on Syracuse in week 2. A very intriguing ACC Big Ten matchup, but staying, of course, up in that region. When you look at the Orange guys, on paper, you think they should improve. They returned 19 starters. But they only averaged 17.8 points per game last year. They only averaged 265.3 total yards per game last year. That was 125th in the country. out of 130 teams. The offense is sputtering. The offensive line is terrible, and you're going up against a Rutgers defensive line that was fantastic last year and will be again this year. Even though it is at the Carrier Dome, even though it is on the road, I like Rutgers in this game. I think they're better coached, and I think they have better talent across the board than Dino Babers and the Orange do right now. Rutgers defense has a big day, and I believe that Bo Melton has at least 2 touchdowns in this game as Rutgers gets a Power 5 non-conference victory at Syracuse, and they're 2-0. We do believe they beat Delaware, the Fightin' Blue Hens, although they cannot afford to overlook them. A very prominent power in the FCS, made a pretty big run last year in the FCS playoffs. Do not need to overlook Delaware, but we do believe Rutgers wins that game. They then get into Big Ten play, guys, and that's where it gets interesting. That's where it gets interesting. This is going to, again, make or break whether the Scarlet Knights get to a bowl game or whether they fall just short. Maybe have to wait one more year for that. Well, their first Big Ten game of the year comes at Michigan, and how fitting, because last year the game against Michigan was an instant classic. In Piscataway, Michigan won 48-42 in triple overtime. That was one of those one-possession losses that we mentioned for Rutgers. They had 3 of them. Michigan was one of them, and that would have been monumental had Rutgers beat Michigan. Even though the Wolverines were not too hot last year, it would have been monumental for this football program. Well, now Rutgers has to travel all the way to Ann Arbor. Michigan has 9 returning starters on defense, led by Aiden Hutchinson on the defensive line, and pretty much they're strong everywhere they go. Everywhere on that defense, they're very strong. The only question Michigan has is their offense. Is it going to be Cade McNamara? Is it going to be J.J. McCarthy? Is it going to be Alan Bowman? Who is going to lead this offense for Michigan? One that tends to sputter quite a bit under Jim Harbaugh. But even then, I think Michigan's offense has enough to exploit this Rutgers defense. And I certainly believe that Michigan's defense at home will be way too much for this Rutgers offense that, yes, has improved drastically and will again this year, but doesn't have the consistency or the big playability to win on the road against such a strong defense in the Wolverines. Rutgers drops this game at Michigan, and we do believe they drop the game at home against Ohio State. And to me, guys, again, that's not to write off Rutgers, but who is going to beat Ohio State in the Big Ten? That's the question we really need to be asking ourselves. It's not going to be Rutgers. 49-27, the Scarlet Knights dropped 27 on the Buckeyes last year. And yes, Ohio State's going through many changes. Got a brand new quarterback, defense, especially in the secondary, still needs a couple areas they got to work on. Still an area of concern. But Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, Master Teague, the offense as a whole is so electric that as soon as they find a capable quarterback, and I believe C.J. Stroud is that guy, Ohio State will not only continue to thrive in the Big Ten, but should make a return trip to the college football playoff. The game's in Piscataway, but Rutgers still drops it to one of the best teams in the country. They then play Michigan State. That was Greg Schiano's first win back at Rutgers. That was that first Big Ten victory we talked about. In the first game of the year, Rutgers beat Michigan State in East Lansing 38-27. A game where the Scarlet Knights defense forced 7 turnovers. 7 turnovers against Michigan State. It was unreal. And it was unreal that that Rutgers won that game against Michigan State because no one expected that to happen. Well, now Mel Tucker enters year 2 in East Lansing, and he's got a lot of questions that he has to answer himself. The one thing they do have going for them, though, is Anthony Russo transferred in from Temple. So we mentioned that earlier. Rutgers plays Temple, but they do not get to avoid Anthony Russo. He should improve this Spartans offense drastically. My fear for Michigan State is their defense. They allowed 35 points per game last year. I don't know if they can see a drastic decrease in those numbers, a drastic improvement in those numbers in a span of 1 year. The game's in Piscataway. Rutgers won't force 7 turnovers this time, but they will beat the Spartans yet again. So they're 4-2, guys. They're 4-2, 2 wins away from a bowl game. They travel to Northwestern to play one of the better coaches in the country in Pat Fitzgerald and the reigning Big Ten West champions, Northwestern. Now again, I don't know if Northwestern can repeat as West champions. They lost so much from that squad last year. But they have a very capable and competent quarterback to replace Peyton Ramsey, Ryan Helinski coming in from South Carolina. And Northwestern had one of the best defenses, not just in the Big Ten, but in the entire country last year, and will have one of the best passing defenses, one of the best secondaries in the conference this year. The game's in Evanston. They're very well coached. The defense is very stingy. And again, I don't know if Rutgers has the offensive capability to exploit that Northwestern defense. I believe the Wildcats get the job done at home. And Rutgers goes into their bye week at 4-3. They come out of their bye to play a winnable game at Illinois. Now, this is one of those tricky games, guys, because I thought Rutgers would beat Illinois last year in Piscataway, and they didn't. They fell to the Fighting Illini 23-20, a very sloppy game for Rutgers. Illinois, though, now dealing with a bunch of brand new changes. Brett Bielema is now in as their head coach, former stints at Wisconsin, Arkansas, briefly in the NFL, now in at Illinois. He knows the Big Ten very well. He knows the region very well. It's just going to be a matter of whether he can succeed in year one with the Fighting Illini or it's going to take some time. I do believe it's probably going to take some time for Brett Bielema, but he inherits a squad that returns 15 starters, including their quarterback in Brandon Peters, who decided to stick around in Champaign. While Rutgers is coming off a bye week coming into this game, I believe Illinois gets the job done at home. A road game at Champaign. They fell to the Fighting Illini last year. Brett Bielema, a very underrated coach, and it's a very winnable game for an Illinois team that might not win that much anyways. I think the Fighting Illini get it done. Rutgers then returns home in the month of November, and I guess gotta say it's a brutal month of November. Wisconsin, Indiana, Penn State in 3 consecutive weeks, 3 of the better teams in the entire conference. We have them losing to Wisconsin. I don't see many people, if any, that can beat Wisconsin in 2021. Graham Mertz returns at quarterback. We know they're going to bully you up front in the trenches with their offensive and defensive lines. 8 returning starters are on defense from a top 10 unit nationally. Paul Chryst has his team in contention for a Big Ten title, and I'm going to say they're a playoff dark horse as well. Rutgers falls to Wisconsin at home. They then travel to Indiana. They fell to the Hoosiers by 16 last year, 37-21. Indiana is a team that returns 17 starters and very well has the capability to win anywhere from 8 to 10 games. Michael Penix, Ty Freifogel, Micah McFadden at linebacker. 17 returning starters in Bloomington with Tom Allen energizing not just this program but the fan base as well. I don't think Rutgers is able to go on the road and pull off this win either. I certainly don't think they have enough to go on the road and beat Penn State. The weird thing about that game, guys, is that Rutgers tends to play relatively well against Penn State. Penn State never really blows out the Scarlet Knights. Last year, the Nittany Lions only won 23-7. Rutgers usually gets a touchdown. Penn State gets a few more, but it's never a devastating, horrible blowout by 40 or 50 points. So I think the Scarlet Knights hang with the Nittany Lions again in this game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. But it's in Happy Valley at the end of the year. Penn State returns their big 3 on offense with Sean Clifford, Noah Cain, and Jahan Dotson. They return 7 starters on defense from one of the best in the Big Ten last year. And I think James Franklin drastically turns this team around from a unit that went 4-5 last year. At Happy Valley, I'm just not seeing it. Penn State wins. Rutgers concludes their season at home against Maryland. Obviously, regardless of what happens against the Terrapins, they cannot go bowling, but it should not take away from the fact that Rutgers, again, has improved. They've already notched a Big Ten win under their belt. They have a Power 5 non-conference victory under their belt. They've won 4 games, and I'm going to say they make it 5 games with a win against Maryland. Let's give them a win against the Terrapins. The logic here is this. They beat Maryland last year 27-24 in overtime. That was on the road. Well, now you could argue that Maryland's going to be better. You can make the exact same argument with Rutgers. Rutgers is better than they were last year. The game is in Piscataway. And also, Maryland allowed 230 rushing yards per game last year. I could very well see Isiah Pacheco having a field day against this defense because Maryland's secondary is going to be very strong. You might not see Bo Melton and Noah Vedral hook up a lot, by Isiah Pacheco in this running game, led by Sean Gleeson, their offensive coordinator, should do just enough at home on senior night of all nights to give Rutgers a win and conclude 2021 with a 5-7 record. Now again, for some that would be viewed as a disappointment, but how can it be? You notched 2 conference victories. Again, a win against Syracuse. As bad as the Orange may be, it's still a Power 5 victory. You're 1 win away from a bowl game, and I will say this, guys. Northwestern and Illinois, those are the 2 games that I actually viewed as toss-ups. Could go either way, especially that Illinois game. Rutgers is good enough to win in Champaign. We just don't see it. We see it being very close like it was last year. Rutgers wins one of those, and they're going bowling in just year 2 under Greg Schiano. The talent is there, the coaching is there, the culture is there in Piscataway. Rutgers is very, very close from finally breaking through to the postseason. Could do it this year. We think they fall just short, but they will be there next year in 2022. Greg Schiano doing phenomenal things up in New Jersey. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at The Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. And also make sure to check out everything down in the description below, including signing up for our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country for the lowest prices in the country. So make sure to go give that a look. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.